What's up, it's Playstan, and today we're doing another cEDH event recap. This one is the cEDH Staples event at Tapped Out Gaming. It took place on Saturday, May 25th, and this one's going to be a bit shorter because unfortunately I didn't really do much in my games. Going into round 1, I was against Chulane, Animar, and Paco Halden. My starting hand was 2 lands, Dockside, Demonic Tutor, Resculpt, and I don't remember if it was Enlightened Tutor or Swords to Plowshares because I drew the other one on turn 1. And that seems like a very good hand, but the lands didn't actually give me any red pips to cast the Dockside, but even if I could cast it, there are only about 2 or 3 artifacts or enchantments for most of the game, so it wouldn't really have been great. Turn 2, I tried to do a Demonic Tutor. I didn't really have anything in mind, just trying to get something going, but it got Swansonged. I did keep some interaction up and ended up Enlightened Tutoring for Aether Vial to try and get like the Dockside out or just build up a bit of a board. And I was also hoping the artifact count would increase. I swords the Chulane to stop them from accumulating value, and because Animar has protection from white, so can't really save it for the Animar player. I ended up using the Resculpt on Chulane as well in response to a Green Suns for 2 because I knew they were going to try and get Lotus Cobra, and that's just like insane value right there, and I really wanted to just kind of put a stop to that before it got started. But Animar had Soul of the Harvest out and ended up drawing into their combo piece because just playing creatures, and eventually drew into the combo piece and the win. That game I didn't really do much aside from countering or removing other people's stuff, and it didn't help that I missed land drops too. And then between the Chulane and the Animar players board, it was a really tough choice because I felt like Chulane was more likely to start comboing and turn their board into a win, whereas the Animar's board itself was a bit scarier, but I felt like they were less likely to like actually combo out. So it could have gone either way with that, but that's kind of how it went. On to round 2, I was against Obnixilis, Slicer, and Magda. Commanders that are a bit more fringe, but pretty much all 3 of them could care about dealing damage to people's life totals, and I was kind of the only one that didn't, so I felt like I wasn't going to have a good time over there. My starting hand had a playable amount of lands and spells and interaction, but in hindsight, I think I should have mulled more, because it didn't really, like, the cards in hand wouldn't really lead to me doing much. Unfortunately, Slicer was directed at me for the most part, and that ended up being pretty frustrating, to be honest. And then they equipped it with the Sword of Fire and Ice, and a lot of those damage triggers also came at me or whatever creatures I had on the field. Like, I had I believe it was a birds, and then I played Dockside for, I think, 4 treasures. Didn't really do much, but then that also got hit with the swords damage as well. So I just kind of was kind of out of things to do at that point. Ended up being at 19 damage with the Slicer, but for better or worse, I didn't die to the Slicer because the Obnixilis player did end up getting their All Will Be One, and you know they got the game with that. So that round was a bit frustrating. Another one of the ones where it didn't really do much, but you know, oh well. My round 3, I was against Akiri, Blue Farm, and Shorikai. There was an early Dranith from the Blue Farm, but Akiri, the player already had him out. They were dealing some pretty decent damage and making a lot of treasures with the Reaver Cleaver, and the Shorikai was also making tons of treasures with their Smothering Tithe, but they didn't really have much to do with them because they still couldn't cast their commander. And eventually the Akiri player killed the Shorikai player, cast Final Fortune to get an extra turn, killed the Blue Farm player, cast Angel's Grace to avoid losing from the Final Fortune, and then killed me. They had like a weird combo with Sunforger looping like the Angel's Grace and Final Fortune, so even if they didn't have the damage to kill me, that was kind of it. That was another hand I think I could have mulled. Again, a decent ratio of spells and lands and interaction, but not really anything that could lead to anything or like a win or anything. Yeah, for the most part, I just played creatures that didn't really do anything by themselves, like Kinnan and Luris, which you need other stuff to get value out of. Round 4 was against Tevish Crom, Faldorn, which is an interesting choice, and Kalia, which is another interesting pick. This one I was actually happy with the starting hand, because I had turn 1 Dork and turn 2 Rhystic, but the Rhystic was countered by a red Elemental Blast from the Kalia, and then my hand didn't really have much else aside from a Phyrexian Metamorph that I could have used to copy a Dockside, but I wouldn't have really had anything to do with the treasures, and then I kind of would have just sat on them till my next turn. So what I opted to do instead was to cast Honest Rutstein and then Sisay so that my creatures would be discounted and then hopefully go off on the next turn. But unfortunately, right after I did that, the next player cast a Doxic Deluge and wiped everyone's board. After that, the Faldorn player cast a Wheel of Misfortune, and the Tevish Crom player and I both bid high, and the Faldorn player unexpectedly bid low, because I say it's unexpected because they were the one casting it and they had the most life. So it's a little odd that they ended up not really like betting that much life, but anyway. And then the Kalia was kind of in the middle, so they still got to wheel without losing the life. And then after the wheel, the Kalia player used a Wishclaw Talisman to find another combo piece, and then they made infinite Dualcaster Mages, and that was the game. So that one, at least it wasn't a problem of mulliganing, but still it was one of those games where I felt like I just didn't really do anything, couldn't really showcase my deck. And yeah, those were all 4 of my rounds, 0 and 4. Just really no plays of mine to really speak of, unfortunately. The winner of the event ended up being a different Magda player than the one I had in my pod, which is pretty interesting to see because it's been a cEDH viable deck for a long time. It's been kind of a staple cEDH deck, and it's a pretty fast and relatively hard to interact with deck, but you'd think kind of at this point people would be able to play around it or against it. But anyway, still pretty interesting. And then there was also the Zerta player from the last event. They also made top 4, and they were 4-0 up until that point, which is really cool to see. It's a very unique commander, and nice to see stuff that's a little more refreshing as opposed to the stuff you more commonly expect, like Blue Farm. Like I said, I didn't mention a lot of my plays just because I didn't really have any that I could have done or anything. And then after going 0-4, I was pretty disappointed with myself and my deck. But unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes in a format with this much variation. And in 2 of the rounds, I think I definitely could have mulled for a better hand. I think I need to try and focus on what the hand can end up doing, rather than just like land spells and interaction, trying to get a hand with those. Because even if you have land spells and interaction, if it doesn't really lead to anything, you'll end up just sitting there, like what I did. Anyway, I'm definitely looking forward to the next event. There's another one this month, and especially because there's going to be the new cards from Modern Horizons 3 that'll come out in the meantime, and I think that'll shake up the format at least a little bit. And there's a couple I think that would be pretty good for Sisay in particular. So in the meantime, I'll need to spend some time tweaking my list before then. Anyway, that was the event recap. A little shorter than I would have liked, but, you know, it's how it goes. Oh well. I'll try and do better in the next one, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching.